Hello, I'm Robert, and today I'm here to review Spider-Man: A Brand New Day. Yeah, so overall, I'd say that I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. One thing that stood out to me was that I think there were a lot of pretty strong performances. I think Tom Holland, Zendaya, and Jon Bernthal were all really good. I also liked Sadie Sink as Jean Grey. I thought it was a little weird that she was so young. I feel like usually Jean Grey is portrayed as kind of an older character. I thought she did a pretty good job for her, as far as I know, like first really big movie appearance. One aspect of the movie that I really liked was kind of how when you had Pete and MJ like rekindling their relationship, I thought the dynamic of, obviously Pete really still being in love for her and caring about her a lot versus Zendaya, who had her memory totally wiped, and then kind of coming back and trying to reconcile these differences was really great. I guess spoilers ahead, so you can stop watching now if you haven't seen the movie yet. But there was one point where Pete is, kind of confessing his love to MJ and saying, I still really love you. And then MJ is kind of there like, you're a good person, but I don't even know you, so I can't love you. I thought that was really well done. I think it kind of felt a little more grounded in how something like this might happen. I think in general, I liked how they did the whole everyone's memories are totally wiped, and that you can't just, you can't trigger someone's emotional response and then all of a sudden they remember you. I feel like that trope is kind of weird, and it's like, oh, couldn't you have done a better job, actually making someone forget? So I think that it was pretty cool that in this one it was like, no, they're actually wiped. That decision was actually final. Though it was weird how in the end he kind of reconnected with Ned, and it's like, did Ned remember Peter? It's kind of unclear. I also liked seeing Peter kind of come into more of a mentorship role with Jean Grey. I think it showed good character growth on his part to say hey, I've been in, not your exact situation, but I've been through these kind of tough times, and now I can kind of help guide you, because, of course, when he first started, he was the super young kid and getting mentored by Robert Downey Jr. So I think that was good to show some of his character growth. But regarding his character growth, that was actually probably, this is kind of related to the biggest gripe I had with the movie, was that I think in the trailer especially, they were really hyping up this whole rebirth thing. And in the movie, that was this huge plot point. He's really changing a lot, and he's, has all these feelings that he doesn't know how to deal with. He's angry and he's hurting people, all of that sort of stuff. But then in the end, it didn't really resolve to anything. Especially with his kind of arachnid hormone thing specifically, there was that one final fight scene where he kind of just took the chip off his back, and then his eyes turned black for a second, and then he's like, no, I'm Spider-Man and Peter Parker. It didn't really kind of show that he had integrated these two parts of himself. It was kind of just oh, well, now he's super powerful and he can shoot these giant webs and just ensnare everyone. And I also kind of didn't like how at the end, especially with his interaction with Ned, it kind of seemed like he was just going back to how things were, because he made this huge decision. He's like, okay, I'm gonna protect the people I love by making them forget me. But then by the end of the movie, he goes back to Ned, and it's kind of oh, we're just gonna be chummy like usual, which I think is fine, and it's makes sense for him to want to do that. It feels like his character didn't really necessarily progress or learn. It was just oh, well, actually things were better like they were before, so I'm gonna go back to that. And I think that there was definitely more that they were kind of touching upon, because I felt like his relationship with MJ was touching on more of that the reality of the situation, where it's he still has such strong feelings for her, but of course she doesn't love him. And I think that just in general, their interactions, it kind of shows okay, maybe they will get back together, and of course they probably will get back together, but it kind of seems like, you know, the relationship is going to be different, or they're going to have to grow it back in some way. But then when he went and talked to Ned, it's kind of like, oh, well, we're just buddies again, and, you know, hey, do you remember me? And, you know, even if you don't, hey, we're still pals and we get along really well. So I think there was kind of some missed opportunity there that I thought if they had explored in a better way, the movie could have been really great. And I think that's kind of why I was disappointed, just because it felt like it had so much potential, but kind of just missed the mark. So overall, I'd rate this movie a 4 out of 5. I was kind of not sure. I was thinking maybe more of like a 3, kind of average movie to me. But in the end, I actually kind of really like some of the stuff they did with like the dynamics around him forgetting things. And although there, I think, was more potential there, what they did have, especially Pete and MJ's relationship, I thought was like pretty well done, especially for a Marvel movie, and I think just in general. With that being said, thanks for watching, and I will see you all later. Bye.